What is going on, guys? It's your boy Rashad here from Talk Automotive Canada, and in this episode we're going to be talking about if you should finance or lease. Now let's break it down.
I stay in the pocket all the time, don't mind if I see it's all mine. Just fine, see I break them all the time, don't mean you can get out of line. Redefine, call it calculated time, we doing it in.
All right, guys, so when we're talking about financing or we're talking about leasing a brand new vehicle, okay? Financing is when you're gonna make monthly payments set by a certain term at a certain interest rate, and at the end of this term, you fully own the car. When we're talking about leasing, you're talking about paying a set payment over a shorter term, and then at the end, you have the choice to either own the car or return it. So why should somebody finance and why should somebody lease? Now, when you're looking at a financing circumstance, typically, if you tend to keep your cars for a long time, you do want to finance them. That's the best way to, have longevity, have a certain point be at no payments, and only having to pay maintenance. Now, when you look at leasing, the advantage to leasing is A, you get to write it off if you're a business, and you get to drive the latest and the greatest and have a low cost of maintenance. So it's important to distinguish the two and to find out which kind of buyer are you. So first of all, the vehicle that you're buying, is this going to be the primary vehicle or the secondary vehicle in the family? Typically, if it's a secondary vehicle, you probably do want to lease it so that, the family gets to enjoy the latest and the greatest, have the latest safety features, and then have a lower cost of ownership, okay? Now, if it is a primary vehicle, you do want to own it. And the reason why is because you want to have the car paid off as fast as possible so that it costs you nothing and you're only maintaining. Now, when you're looking to own a car, you can own a car over a various amount of terms. Typically, the longer you go, the higher the interest rate. So you have to be careful. So you can do 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, and 84, sometimes even 96. Now, listen to me carefully. You cannot do an 84 or a 96. That is a very bad way to buy a car. 7 years is a long time. The average Canadian puts 20,000 kilometers on their vehicle per year. So you'll have a car with 140,000 kilometers that you're just making payments on. And with the kind of weather we have in Canada, cars don't really last that long, right? So you gotta be careful. Now, ideally what you wanna do is put yourself in a 5-year term. That's the best way to go. 5 years at about 100,000, then you ride the vehicle for as long as you can, hoping you can hit 180, 200, 210 on kilometers, and you've got another 5 years without making any payments. Now, if you can't afford the payment on the car, there's two things you can do to lower your car payment. A, have a trade. B, put money down. Stretching your term to 72 months might make sense depending on the amount that you're financing, only if you feel that you're going to be chucking money away at the vehicle, because on a finance, the loan is actually open-ended. You can pay it off as fast as you want. So make sure that you understand that if you're financing a car, you can pay it off as fast as you want. There is no penalty to paying off a loan earlier. You're not going to pay more interest. Your interest charge is actually charged to you on a daily basis. When you look at your bill of sale, you'll find your total finance charges. Take that and divide it by how many months, and then actually, you should take that number, divide it by how many years, and then divide it by 365. You'll find out exactly how much interest you're paying per day. So the longer you carry the loan, the more interest you're going to pay. Now, in certain circumstances in financing, what you're going to want to do is, if you've got, let's say you got $10,000, right, and you're ready to buy a car. So going into a dealership and putting $10,000 down on a vehicle and then financing it over 84 months is ludicrous, because it's not going to make that big of a difference in your payment. Okay, your payment's going to be already low. It's going to drop 40 bucks, 50 bucks, 100 bucks, 100 bucks at best. I would say you should keep your $10,000. The best way to do it is you take the 84-month term, right? Then you take your $10,000 that you have, and then you chuck the $10,000 towards the loan. That's going to allow you to have the 84-month payment and then allow you to finish it a lot sooner, because that $10,000 will go straight towards principal, right? Now, when we're talking about leasing, leasing is if you're a mortgage agent or a real estate agent, you own your own business, you have drivers, fleet of cars, you get to write off the taxes on the lease. I am a big fan of leasing. I think everybody should be leasing every car, because typically vehicles depreciate. Now let's talk about the pandemic for a second, okay? Pandemic hit, car values went up. Your lease has a buyout at the end. Your buyout at the end is a lot lower than what the car is worth. So what you want to do is, you don't even own the car, you've paid for half of the car, and now you get to make equity on the car. So never return your lease, like I've explained in one of my previous videos. Always trade your lease in, right? So when you're looking at leasing a vehicle, right, the best way to lease a vehicle, actually it's the best time to lease a vehicle is right now, because we don't know what's going to happen in the market. We have no idea. Maybe in 2 years there's going to be a huge crash, right? But I know the residual values are still reflecting the old market. So residual value is your buyout at the end. That's the most important thing that you need to know. So for example, if you're leasing a $35,000 car and they're saying the car is worth $12,000 in 4 years, you're only paying the difference between 35 and 12. So if you end up returning it or trading it in, you've saved yourself $12,000. Not only that, you only pay taxes on the difference. You only pay the taxes on the $12,000 if you decide to buy it out. So if you return the car or trade it in, you've saved half of the taxes of the vehicle, which is a significant savings. Okay? Now, let's stick to the subject here. When you're looking at leasing, let's say, you're leasing a car today, and then the car buyout is $11,000, right? You paid $35,000, right? So actually, for the sake of easy math, why don't we say, let's say your car at the end of the lease is worth $15,000, right? And you paid $35,000, so you're financing $20,000. Now, come 5 months before the lease ends, you evaluate the vehicle and you find out it's worth $20,000. Well, now you've only paid $15,000 to drive that car, right? So that's very important, which is why I think you should lease. I don't think the manufacturers right now have reflected the residual value to what's happening in the market. And the reason why they haven't done that is because they probably don't think that the market is going to sustain the way it is, so they don't want to be screwed, thus giving you a lower residual value, thus allowing you in 2 to 3 years to come back and actually trade in your car and end up with equity. So my advice to you is, if you're looking for a good deal on a car right now, A, place an order. B, make sure it's a lease. If you do a lot of mileage, you can actually do high mileage leasing. You can prepay lease mileage up to 30,000 kilometers. Actually, if you do high mileage, you should be leasing, because the vehicle is going to depreciate a lot faster than when you're going to pay it off. So if you do a 4-year lease right now and you do 30,000 kilometers a year, you can trade it in at 3.5 years, right? And you just keep flipping in and out of cars, because this car is actually, you're putting a lot of mileage on it. That's 30,000 kilometers a year is high mileage, right? Second thing you want to keep in mind is it's a great way for you to kill some negative equity. So for example, let's take scenario A and say that you had a vehicle that you owed $30,000 on, was worth $25,000. You traded it in and you leased this brand new F-150. You carried over $5,000 from the previous car, right? Now when you get out of that lease, $5,000 is done. You're back to square one. You're back to zero. But if you financed it over 84 months, within 7 years, you're going to switch your car, because your needs could change. The vehicle could start giving you problems. Your cost of maintenance could be high, which is why it's important for you to lease. In my opinion, everybody should be leasing cars. It gives you options rather than sticking you into a finance, and then now you're trying to get out of it, 6 to 7 years later, thinking that your car is worth more than what you owe. You'll never be ahead because of the taxes. Keep that in mind. You will never be ahead because of the taxes. Thanks for listening, guys. My name's Rashad from Talk Automotive Canada.